Thanks, Norm. Next up, we've got Bill Dowd, and Bill is with Humane Wildlife Control. And he founded Humane Wildlife Control in 1989, recognizing the need for a humane approach to wildlife control services. He's a pioneer of the urban wildlife control industry, and Bill steered his company from its humble beginnings in Hamilton with one service truck to a national service provider with 40 employees and over 25 service vehicles. Bill's committed to growing the business into new markets and expanding the service offerings, as well as ensuring exceptional customer service. Bill has recently partnered with Truly Nolan Pest Control, which is the world's leading family-owned pest control company in over 60 countries, and he is now partnered with them to run their Canadian operations. And Bill has an Honours Bachelor of Physical Education from Brock University and a noteworthy hockey career with the Ontario Hockey League's Ottawa 67s, the New York Islanders minor league teams, and the Brock University Badgers varsity hockey club, so we might need to pull him out with the lack of the hockey, I guess, that we've been having lately. He currently coaches minor hockey in the Hamilton area, and he's given wildlife presentations and consultations to various cities, public health departments, universities, and colleges over the company's 23 years in business. So we're just going to be a moment getting his presentation set up.
Okay, well, thank you, Donna, for inviting me here in the Town of Oakville. Great turnout tonight. Actually, a great surprise. Number of municipalities we've spoken to in the past, maybe 5 or 10 people. So to see this many people out at an event like this is great. So I hope to educate you in regards to urban wildlife in terms of what is going on in your town and other municipalities across Canada. We'll get into the wildlife and what our service entails in terms of our services, as well as what you can do as homeowners to animal-proof or protect your home. So get into our presentation here. And we'll start here by quickly a little video explaining our services.
Not only having an animal in your attic, such as raccoon and squirrel, very stressful for the homeowner, there is a number of health concerns, especially with raccoons.
Humane Wildlife is just fantastic to work with and very professional.
Environmentally friendly disinfectants, environmentally friendly insulation, and we make sure that the house is brought back up to code.
Humane societies and SPCAs endorse our methods. So not only are we the pioneer in urban wildlife control, we're Canada's largest company, but we're also most humane approach as well.
So a quick little overview on what we do. Obviously, we're all not looking forward to that snowy little picture we saw, but it is coming. So nowadays, we're more inclined to see wildlife in our backyard than if we were on a sightseeing tour or out camping, or you have it. These animals are in our urban centers, and they're here to stay. So as we stated, we've been in business 23 years. We've grown to be the largest in Canada. A lot of the methods that we've developed and pioneered over the years have been copied and trying to be replicated, but there is a definite industry now compared to 23 years ago when your homeowner was basically on their own to try and solve their own problem. Some kind of glamour shots here of the early days. We won't talk about the funny shorts and strange-looking vehicles. But from day one, we've been recognized as being a humane company. We feel there's a real need, the fact that these animals are in our cities to coexist together. They're here to stay. We're not getting rid of them. We're still learning to adopt that policy or to get along with wildlife. They seem to have mastered it. Whether it's dancing in your attic or running across your lawn, tearing it up, they're here and they're enjoying our environment. The question a lot of time is who owns wildlife? There's federal laws, such as Norm was talking, regarding Migratory Bird Act. You cannot harass Canada geese. There's some large fines for that. Provincial laws, Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources, they have a Fish and Wildlife Conservation Act, which basically states it's illegal to relocate urban wildlife more than 1 kilometer away. So they are involved in that. They also state that if you're going to deal with wildlife on your land, you must hire a company whose main source of business is urban wildlife control. There's companies out there that deal with pests and bugs and what have you, or a roofer. Legally, under the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Act, they're not allowed to deal with urban wildlife on your property. There's municipal bylaws. Animal control, dealing with cats and dogs. Health departments, when it comes to bats in your home, the threat of rabies. Property Standard Act, landlord tenants must keep their property properly maintained. So the public really, there's all these different agencies that are involved. But when it comes right down to it, the ultimate responsibility, as Donna mentioned in her introduction, relies with you, the homeowner. If your sink was leaking, the town is not going to call a plumber for you to come and fix that leak. And same thing with urban wildlife. If you're experiencing a problem, you're going to need to do your research and come up with a viable solution, either by yourself or calling a reputable company. So I'll get a little bit about what we do. We're a very hands-on removal company. We crawl into areas and physically take these animals out. We've never set traps and relocated animals because that's really not a viable or ethical solution. So it's a hand-on removal, whether we have to cut openings in walls. Once we have the babies, we then give them back to the mother. We'll put them in a baby release box that she can take them. And then here's a quick little video of how a mother will come to a young. So that chittering, chattering noise is the babies. And when you're hearing that above your master bedroom all night long, people tend to want to get those animals out for that. Obviously, raccoons are excellent climbers. Whatever you can do with your hands, they can do with theirs. So she'll pick them up by the scruff of the neck. Up the fence and down that first. They really are a remarkable animal. So you can understand how that noise can get very upsetting over time when you're trying to sleep and have to go to work the next day. And baby raccoons will be in your attic or in your chimney typically about 3 or 4 months. They are very intelligent, so they develop very slowly. Their eyes open at 21 days. So it does take quite some time before they'll vacate your property. And over that course of time, the damage they can do in your attic, whether it be odor, destruction of insulation, electrical wiring, ectoparasites or bugs that live on these animals, ticks and fleas and that type of thing, can be really substantial. Sometimes we'll put babies in a tree environment where mom can come and pick them up and take them away. And basically they can get in everywhere and anywhere. And as we can see on the picture here, the claws on these animals are pretty astounding. Once they take them away, we get the question a lot of times, well, they're just going to go to my neighbor's home. They've already been in the neighbor's home. Typically, they have at least 7 to 10 den sites in a neighborhood. Wish we could all have that many homes. But whether they're, if they're down a street a bit or over a block and it starts becoming daybreak, they're intelligent enough to know not to walk through broad daylight where us humans might come in contact with them. They'll just slip into another chimney or underneath somebody's deck or shed, and they'll just sleep the day away there. So very remarkable animal that's flourishing in all of our urban centers. Our main focus, once we get these animals out, is to animal-proof the home. So here we have a rather sad and depressed raccoon on the top of a chimney. These are our chimney screens that we custom make to prevent animals from getting in. Typically the type of chimney screens or caps that you can purchase at a hardware store really aren't 100% animal-proof because these animals are such strong animals and determined to get in a structure when they want to. Sometimes we need to take bricks out to gain access to these animals, in behind a fireplace, in a firewall. And then once again, giving them to the mother to take to her alternate den sites. They can be in behind soffits, so sometimes aluminum soffits need to be pulled down to gain access to them. Squirrels, another animal that's flourishing in our cities. These ones are about 3 weeks old. Their eyes are not open yet. Same thing, a hands-on removal. give them back to the mother, and she'll pick them up one by one and carry them away. All urban wildlife can't count. So they'll always come back one more time to see if they have all their young. And as we can see here, the screen, we have then secured the home so the animals can't get back in. Another quick video here. This is a mother squirrel on the roof. She'll pick them up by the hind leg, wrap them around herself, and she's just as mobile with the young in her mouth as she is without them. We'll watch a big jump here as she jumps from one roof to another, carrying the baby in her mouth. And off she goes. So whenever you hear those young babies squealing like that if you're holding them, it's time to be very vigilant, because a mother squirrel will come from a block over, run right up your leg and attack you because you're holding her young. Raccoons tend to be more of an intelligent animal and tend to keep their distance a little bit, but squirrels, maybe being a little bit squirrely, will come right at you. Skunks, there's a very, very high population of skunks in Oakville. Probably one of the highest populations of all the cities we service, and we're in about 60 different municipalities. Maybe due to the geography down by the lake and the sandy soil, it makes it very easy for skunks to flourish and live underneath decks and sheds, and any structure without a foundation is vulnerable to skunks. And once again, same thing, hands-on removal, gain access to them, put them out, and the mother will once again pick them up and carry them away one by one. This particular shot was a busy street, and we had to be out on the street actually stopping traffic to allow the mother skunk to come back and forth and pick up her young and take them to an alternate den site. The most difficult part of skunk work is preventing them from getting back in. And as the slide shows here, we dig a trench about a foot deep and a foot out and put a heavy gauge screen, 16 gauge, about the thickness of a coat hanger wire, so they can't get back in. So put a lot of labor. We use that for the young guys on our staff or young women on our staff to dig these trenches. Some real back-breaking type work. Birds are another problem in our urban centers. There's a number of products that can deter them from landing and roosting on a spot, whether it be seagulls or pigeons. But from a homeowner perspective, a lot of times it's sparrows or starlings that are living in dryer vents, stove vents, or powder room, bathroom vents. Number of concerns with this, especially with this being a dryer. The vent will be totally plugged with nesting material, and a lot of times there is a fire hazard. The dryer will not be exhausting properly, overheat, and could cause a fire. So obviously a real health and safety concern. Also, birds carry a lot of parasites. There's bird mites, bird ticks, that live on birds. So a lot of times in the middle of summer, a homeowner will come home from work and take a look on their stove. The nest will be in the fan above the stove, and basically it'll look like the stove is moving. And these are all these tiny little bird ticks and mites that'll be moving on the stove. So those are some typically panicked homeowners when those calls come in. And once we get the birds out, we'll put them on the exterior wall. This is our so-called baby jug. The babies are in here, and mom and dad will come back and feed them. We have then put our screen over these vents. Anything north in the city, upper middle, Highway 5, where all the new development is going on, is a prime area for birds and vents. And considering every home typically has 3, 4, 5 of these vents, we're providing them with great nesting areas right inside our homes. Bats are another animal that are in our urban centers. The population of bats in Oakville is relatively small compared to areas such as London, Ontario, Ottawa, Hamilton, which have high populations of bats. But they are prevalent in Oakville. The issue with bats is their droppings. There's a respiratory illness called histoplasmosis, constant flu-like symptoms when you breathe in those droppings. And the slide here illustrates a heating system and all the bat droppings on top of it, which then gets mixed in and gets pushed throughout the home. Bats can also bite us, and we wouldn't know we've been bitten. So this is an example of a tiny bat bite. whenever a bat is in your living space, we always recommend you call Public Health Department because they'll ask a number of questions and make a determination if you should get your rabies shots. And it's hard to believe, but it's a tiny little pinprick from a bat. The risk of it being rabid is probably very, very low, but the risk is so high because once you start showing symptoms of rabies, the end result is death. We actually had one of our technicians in Kingston was doing some work, and a lot of times when it's a large colony, 50 or 100 bats in the attic, you'll hear them squeaking and squawking as we're sealing it up. And he was doing some work, and all of a sudden he saw the bat come out, bit him on the arm, barely felt it, he saw the blood, rubbed it off, went down to his truck, cleaned up, started driving to the hospital, get his booster shot, and looked down at his arm and couldn't even determine where the bat bite was. So it is just from a public health concern if you ever do have a bat in your living space, definitely call public health. And no, they don't fly in open doors or open windows. Everybody likes to believe that, but these are an animal that's outside every night eating 2,000 to 3,000 insects a night. They have no desire to fly in an open door or window. They might come close because most of the heat that is exhaust from your home is through your head. You might have some bugs flying around your head. They might fly close, but they're not going to fly in your hair, and they're not going to come in an open door or window. This is an example of a tiny crack that bats can get in all along here. Basically, a bat is like a flying mouse. They can get an opening the size of a dime. So any crack or crevice on your home should be secured with a sealant or a caulking or a screening. A 1/4-inch screening is probably best to screen for bats, otherwise they'll squeeze through it. So it doesn't take very much. So if you can imagine your home, all these little cracks and crevices on your home, there's hundreds of areas on a standard home where bats can enter. And another very topical subject, bed bugs. Bats have been known to carry bat bugs and bed bugs. So not only do we have to worry about going to a movie theater or a hotel room and bed bugs attaching to your shoes or your luggage, now the worry is that the explosion of bed bugs in our communities could be a reason from bats. And this is a product that we work with. It's an exclusion sealant that we worked with our manufacturer over the 23 years in business. Similar to a caulking product, you could probably buy it at Home Depot. Similar silicone-based caulking. We've had a couple more additives added to this so it adheres to brick, metal, stone. So as the house expands and contracts over summer and winter, these gaps don't become prevalent again. Mice, very common problem this time of year. The cooler weather are having mice flood into our homes. Our phones are ringing off the hook this time of year with mice calls. Typically we get 300 to 400 phone calls a day. Probably 60% of them this time of year are mice calls. Mice reproduce every 21 days. So 2 mice can result in a very large infestation very quickly. Typically when you see 1 mouse, there's 15 or 20 others. So they are another animal that are very difficult to deal with because they can get an opening the size of a dime, just like a bat. Here's some examples here. Most newer homes have a weep vent, which is by code, which allows proper ventilation and drainage of the home. Some builders put in a plastic venting, which they'll just chew through. This is a vent close to the ground, and there's the mouse hole there. So it doesn't take mice much to get in. And then this little half moon shape here is all it takes for the mouse to get into this property. What do animals damage? Well, you name it. Whether it's soffits on your home, joists in your attic space, ruining the insulation. This is a squirrel damage. Basically every piece of wood in this picture has been gnawed by squirrels. Squirrels are rodents, which mean their teeth are constantly growing. So they need to chew basically just for recreation. So for the fun of it, they're chewing to keep their teeth at proper length, similar to what a beaver would do. And then in this case, from a structural standpoint, here's a 2x4 that's holding up the roof, which has been chewed right away from this joist. Of course, all the chewing up and down here and all the chewing around This is where the roof vent was on the roof that the squirrel came in through. Squirrels love the electrical coating on your wiring. It's soft, they like it on their teeth, the feel of it, so they'll chew away. There has been documented cases of fires being caused from squirrels chewing, and unfortunately, this is not covered by your insurance. Insurance companies will not cover damage by raccoons, squirrels, bats, birds, you name it. So these are some areas that, being a homeowner, you should look at animal proofing or get on your roof, take a walk around your home every season, spring, summer, winter, fall, and look for gaps or openings. So, basically some flashing around a chimney. Here the builder cut a square hole for a round pipe, and all it took was a raccoon to lift up this metal, and you can see the square hole cut here, and he's right inside the attic space. Vents on your roof. Every home has 5, 6, 7 vents at least. We have a display table in the back of the room here. You'll see some other evidence. Some are plastic, some are metal. There's not a manufacturer out there that makes these vents animal-proof. And as we get into the fall season and into winter, these vents allow the proper release of heat from your home through your attic and out through the top of your home. So they are very important. But if you're a squirrel, you're a bird, you're a raccoon looking to survive the fall season or the winter season, you're attracted to these vents on your roof like a magnet because they're giving off a heat source. A lot of times after a snowfall, take a look around in all your neighbors' homes. You'll see all these vents, whether they're square or rectangular, and all the snow around will be melted. Structures such as roof fascia space. This is where the roof comes down and meets the board the eaves trough is attached to. You can see how there's a gap right here, which allowed the raccoon to get his claws in and rip and tear. Once again, soffits being pulled down. Raccoons love to climb these downspouts, and they'll sit on this little section, reach up, and there's only a tiny finishing nail that holds that soffit in place, and they just rip it right down. So that's an area, as a homeowner, you want to get up and re-secure these areas so they can't reach to the right or to the left and yank that soffit down. In the same token, this little gap here where the roof board meets the soffit, or sorry, the fascia board, that's the board the eaves trough is attached to, there's a product called Drip Edge that can go in that area and cover up that gap. It's a metal flashing. Or you can put screen over that gap, which is a product we would use. So how can homeowners minimize these intrusions? First off, don't feed wildlife. I love wildlife, I love birds. I learned a long time ago not to have a bird feeder in my backyard. It's going to attract birds, squirrels, skunks, raccoons, opossums, rats, mice, you name it. There's enough food out there for birds. They will survive without you putting them in a bird feeder. Garbage should be secured. Garbage should never be put out on the street at night. That's when raccoons, skunks, opossums are foraging for food. Garbage should always be at the curb first thing in the morning. But once again, that's getting up early. Most people like to put it out the night before. I know on my street, every night, there's garbage strewn across the sidewalk because somebody's put it out at night. Lawns should be treated with a reputable lawn care company, such as we refer Weedman. They can control the grubs in the lawn, which will stop the raccoons and skunks and opossums from digging up your lawn. Composters protected, TV antennas wrapped, eaves troughs cleaned, leaving debris in your eaves troughs, leaves and what have you, seeds, that type of thing. That's a food source, so that's going to bring raccoons and squirrels up onto your roof. And obviously maintaining a roof. If you need new shingles, you need new roof sheathing, get it done. Animals are opportunistic. They'll find that gap and they will get in. Of course, here's an example of somebody not maintaining their garbage. And as we stated, here's some lawn damage. This all happened in one night. Great, well-manicured lawn down in Oakville, close to the lake. Homeowner thought, I'll set a trap. That'll solve my problem. With there being at least 10 to 15 raccoons in a square kilometer, instead of one raccoon knowing that this lawn was a food source, he attracted about 15. And this is what he woke up to the next day. Now, he caught 2 raccoons, I don't know how 2 raccoons ever got into one trap. I've never seen this in my life. But for whatever reason, he got 2 raccoons, but this is the damage that occurred. So we recommend our friends at Weedman for a nice, clean, healthy lawn, which will control your grub situation, which will keep raccoons out of your backyard and skunks. And if you're keeping them out of your yard, there's less of a probability that they're going to take up residence in your attic or chimney or underneath your deck or shed.